A very warm welcome to this Erasmus Success Talk. This is a talk show in which I talk with alumni from the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And today we're discussing the route to the Csuite. I invited two people from that Csuite, two Dutchies. But we're speaking English, so everybody can follow. Let me start off with Marguerite. Marguerite, when did you study in Rotterdam?
I started in 1986, and I studied law. And
like me?
Yeah.
But you ended up in a C-suite. That's a quite unusual route.
Yeah, but I think everybody is a CEO of its own career and its own life. So I think you're also in the C-suite somewhere.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, so you studied law, and you are now the director of the board. How should I say director of the board at Aon?
Yeah, so I'm chairman of the executive board of Aon.
Chairman of the executive board. Of course, that was. Yeah. And how are these times for you at Aon?
Now the world, it's a very complex world with a lot of risk. And a lot of people are looking and seeking how to mitigate risk. And the world was already complex before COVID-19 hit us with risks like cyber, with a lot of regulatory circumstances, geopolitical tension.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody is aware of the fact that you need to adjust and adapt to the change and take a look how you can make the best of it.
Yeah. Mattijs, you are the CEO of Sunweb, a travel company.
Yeah, Sunweb Group. Otherwise, I get into trouble with the other brands of the group.
Yeah, you have more brands. That's true. Do I dare to ask how your year was?
Well, if you would have asked me a week ago, probably I would have been very sad.
Yeah.
But since we received the news last week that slowly but surely the borders are opening up again, the shop is open. So a lot of people are actually booking. Money is finally flowing in again.
Yeah.
Instead of only out. But again, the times are still very uncertain. Yeah. Countries that open up could close again. We have Asia going into another lockdown and having the fourth wave. So I keep saying internally, it's not over yet. Yeah. But at least we have some good news now.
You've been in travel or flying for a long time now, because you came from Tanzania.
I came from Tanzania. I was CEO of Tanzania for 6.5 years.
Yeah.
Actually, Sunweb Group was our largest customer, wholesale customer in Tanzania. And Tanzania is still our largest partner today. So it's not a completely strange step.
No.
Even though when I was asked to make the move, I was still surprised. Because I used to have some fights with the previous CEOs of Sunweb Group in my former job. Yeah.
But that sometimes can be a way of selling yourself, just to stand out and be annoying, so they buy you.
Well, actually, that was when I was asked, so why do you come to me? And I said, well, at least you're somebody who stands for his company, who's willing to fight, and you always fight respectfully. Yeah. Which I took as a compliment. And,
very good.
Yeah.
Is it better to be now in Sunweb than in Tanzania, or does it really?
I think we're in the same boat.
Yeah. In the same boat.
And we're both, I think, doing relatively well compared to a lot of others.
Yeah. We're discussing the road to the C-suite today. Marguerite, let me start with you. I've been told that you were on that road from the start. You always had the ambition to end up in this C-suite at some point in your career. How come? Where did that motivation come from?
I think it takes you to be bold, brave, and brilliant to get to the C-suite. My boldness started indeed at a young age. I worked for one of the predecessors of Aon, a small reinsurance brokerage firm here in Rotterdam. And in my first performance review, they asked me, what do you aspire? What do you want to achieve? And I answered the top. And I can remember that this male owner of that company was looking at me was really starting to laugh hard out loud. And said, so that's something. I've always, I'm not saying that I've always known what I wanted, because it also takes some luck to achieve what you're achieving.
Yeah.
You can't control everything in life. But as I say, luck favors the prepared mind. And so I've also, I've always worked hard, studied hard, to get things started and to get things going.
You can't name a certain point in your life or maybe in your youth when you thought, okay, I want to be this kind of person. I want to be I want to be at the top. I mean, I'm asking this because it's not so usual still among young girls to have this ambition.
Yeah, so I was always inspired by, I have to say, I was always really inspired by Christiane Amanpour, and she's a journalist for CNN. Some of us will remember her. She always stood out in very awkward situations in wars and interviewing senior global leaders and senior execs of companies. And I'm just inspired by those women who are able to build bridges between, there's a lot of discussion around female and male leadership. At the end of the day, it's about doing it together. And it's about building bridges on how you can actually, be also, I think also how you can be, I think, accepted for who you are. And not for what you are, but for who you are as a human being. And I think it's more and more important to be accepted for who you are as a human being instead of what you are, whether you're the CEO of Sunweb Group or you're the journalist or Marguerite. It's important that people, it's more about you. And that's why I always say to young girls and young boys, like, you're the CEO of your life and the master of your own destiny.
Yeah. But you had a role model, which was inspiring.
Yeah.
Who motivated you to become someone.
Yeah. But there can be different role models for different things. You can have a role model for your mother role. You can have a role model for your career in business, etc. Yeah.
Mattijs, the same goes for you. You always aimed for the top.
No. Well, I think our stories cannot be more different. No,
you were just a sloppy student, lazy.
When people ask me at a young age, what do you want to be? I was always said two things. One is a doctor. And I actually tried to get into a medicine university for 3 years, but was not lucky. So I parked myself in my study economics. And in the end, after 8.5 years, finished that. So I cannot call myself a hard worker. And always my second thing, what I mentioned was I want to be a father. At a very young age, my biggest dream was to have children. And it's also a form of leadership, perhaps, but a different kind of form. And I always took my career a bit step by step, not trying to plan ahead, not trying to sort of, I want to make it there. And I think also the title of the program here, The Road to the C-Suite, sort of suggests that that's the end of the road. And for me, this is just a phase. It's a step in between. I don't know what will be after. I have my ideas about that. Maybe we can come talk about that later. But I don't believe in career planning. I think you really have to enjoy what you're doing. I do believe that, and certainly when I started to work professionally, I really started to work hard. You have to try to get better every day. Yeah. And I'm very competitive. When you play a game with me, you have to play to win. I don't mind losing, but I will play to win, and I'll use all the tricks in the book. And that's sort of those two things, getting better and being better than somebody else, that eventually propelled me into where I am now.
Yeah. So that ambition to reach the top grew a bit during your career. It almost happened to you.
You could say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Well, of course, I think a lot of young people finishing their studies, they want to be in the C-suite. They want to have a top career. But maybe also something changed a bit in our generation. Well, let me ask first: is it always so much fun in the C-suite?
Yeah,
I mean, you always wanted it, and now you're there.
So back to I'm almost wanted. I think that I think I always wanted to achieve and do better as I did. So I was always looking for change. I like very much change. So and I'm very curious and I'm willing to learn. I think those are three important elements: so curiosity and willingness to learn and to adapt to change. But whether it's always fun in the C-suite, I actually always, I often have a smile on my face, but of course there are also situations which, and you've definitely encountered in the past year, which is giving you serious worries and crisis management and trying to deal with the situation. But I've learned as a leader to repair the roof when the sun shines, if possible, and to do a lot of scenario planning, so that when something happens, that you will be able to counter it. But also, Sander, if you take a look at, if I would now travel from this part of Rotterdam to the other part of Rotterdam, do I anticipate that all the traffic lights will simply jump to green when I pass? No, they won't. So you have to anticipate that there will always be challenges and opportunities along with it.
Yeah.
And I tend to be an optimist, which is, I believe that there is, in every difficulty, there's opportunity.
Yeah. But of course, a lot of people, especially young people, probably will see a career like yours with a lot of sacrifices. They think it's necessary, that there's always a trade-off. You need to sacrifice a lot to have a career like you have. Is that true still in these times?
I think it's important to have passion for what you do, because if you have passion and that already makes half of the work, gets you already half of the work done.
Yeah.
Back to sacrifices. Yeah, sometimes you need to make tough decisions, and that could be deciding whether you're going to spend time home or whether you need to go on a plane to get to your next business meeting. Yeah. I think it's very important to balance those decisions off with your partner. So I've always said it's very important, not only to have the right study and qualifications to be successful, but it's even more important to have the right partner who enables you to get those choices, to get those choices being made. Yeah.
Mattijs, can you characterize people in that C-suite? I mean, is there a certain personality trait, feature that's necessary to be in that C-suite? Because to be honest, I'm a bit cynical. I mean, I've had a lot of C people in my life, and I was not always impressed. I thought they were a bit sneaky, the kind of person that just has a little chat with the boss and able to get a promotion and just keeps on breathing and finally turns out to be the boss.
I don't think you can, in general, characterize C-suite people. Obviously, they have a certain ambition. Yeah. There are sacrifices to be made. And you have to find it worthwhile to sit in that seat and feel the responsibility, but also feel the freedom, because one balances the other one out. So I think the ambition is there. I think for the rest, I don't think you can easily compare one versus the other.
There's no
and I think
CEO.
If you look at the two of us, probably we cannot be more different. Obviously, we'll find some things that we'll probably think alike about, but that's our ambition, and it's our ability to adapt. It's our willingness to learn, and I think curiosity. I think that's absolutely one of the major characteristics you need. To always look outside, see what's happening, try to relate that to your organization, find the opportunities. So probably being some kind of optimist is needed as well. Yeah. For the rest, I think we're just ordinary people.
But I am interested in your story because, also in yours, by the way. But it's so interesting that you say it more or less happened to me. That there must be some sort of moment that you realized, okay, I'm now going from this kind of guy, I'm becoming that kind of guy. I went from this lazy, I'll see whatever happens in my life kind of student to being the boss. I mean, there must be some sort of change.
No, if I would take two moments, one is actually the realization, and that happened during IMD. I did a executive course in IMD in Lausanne, and the one part was about culture, and it was about national cultures, but it was about organizational cultures, and they rated cultures on a scale of your view on mankind, positive, cynical, or negative. And so you had to fill in a questionnaire, I think about 300 questions on a computer the evening before, Yeah, and then the whole tutorial came. I wasn't really paying attention, sitting on my phone. And then all of a sudden I sort of caught up, well, there is one anomaly in this whole group. Okay. So we had a break. I took a coffee, tapped on my shoulder, and there the professor was, and he said, well, I talked about the anomaly. I said, okay, now he's going to test whether I paid attention or not. He said, well, it's actually you. I said, what do you mean? He said, I have never seen anybody filling in his questionnaire with such a positive view on people. And that realization, that was the way I look at people, for me was like, so that's why I do the things I do. And then from that moment on, when you become aware and conscious about that, you're trying actually to create a world that fits that image, and you create a view on organization and how you can actually have people grow in organizations and be themselves, because I fully agree with Marguerite in that. So that was one very important moment that I said, okay, I want to do something with that apparently, exceptional way of looking at the world. The second one, as you said, it grew on me. Normally, I was always asked. I was asked as a chairman of my student fraternity. I was asked as captain of the hockey team. I was asked whatever. Never sort of asked anything myself. And
you're a lucky person.
And you talked about the importance of a partner. Now, I happen to have a coach as a partner, and we always take every 1 year, 2 years. We go 2-3 days outside, a forest day or whatever we call that here, and we talk about our respective careers. And so once it takes the position of the coach, and then we change sides, and we talked, and she said, yeah, but then you have to become a CEO. Because if this is your view on organizations and you really want to change and transform an organization the way you think it should be done, you have to be the CEO. You cannot do that as number 2 or number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, then I said, okay, how do I become a CEO? And I worked at KLM. And I said, okay, there's one company where I don't want to do it in KLM. It's too complex, part of Air France KLM. It will never happen there. One company where I maybe can do that, Transavia. And for the first time in my life, I raised my finger and said, I want to be the CEO of Transavia.
First
there was no vacancy.
Made a plan. Yeah.
I made a plan, and I communicated my plan to all stakeholders. Yeah. 3 months later, I got a call. You can apply for the job, and I got the job, and the rest is history. So it is those two things, the realization of my positive view on people, and for the first time in my life, raise my hand and say, I want this. Yeah. Those two things sort of probably brought me to where I am now.
Be bold. Was there also such a defining moment in your career where you actually said, hello, I'm here and I want to be the boss?
So my career went maybe a little bit different, because I worked my whole life for Aon, which is is an American Anglo-Saxon company. I was not a native English speaker. I was a woman in a male organization, wearing very colorful clothes, while all the other women were wearing dark clothes. So I was always, visible, but not visible in a way that you felt like your intelligence is accepted the way it should. So I studied my whole life. While we're doing this for the Erasmus alum talks, I can tell you one thing. You can study your whole life. I've been to INSEAD. I've been to Harvard Business School. If you look at my CV, Sander, I've been to every business school across the globe. It's not about business schools. It's about whether you're really willing indeed, at some moments, whether you're indeed able to create the awareness on your personality. So raising your hand from time to time is something which you should do. But back to how that come across, I think that one, Mattijs, you mentioned people. I've always said in every interview I do, what are the 3 triggers in my CV? That's sometimes the question you get. So that's for me, people, international, and change. And I've always liked to travel, and I've seen every bit of the whole world. But it's important to realize what triggers you in your strategy of how to become successful. Also be aware that you can't control everything. And thirdly, I think it's really important that, back to what you refer to as playing to win, at Harvard they play to win versus playing not to lose, that when you do something, do it with all the determination you can get. Because if you do it halfway, you won't succeed. If you really go for it, proactive, offensive, play to win, then you might achieve what you want to achieve. And maybe if you don't, but then at least you've given it the best go you can give.
Yeah.
Yeah, which means you should not be afraid to lose.
Yeah.
You can always only play to win if you're not afraid to lose.
Of course.
And failure builds character. Yeah, I always say, there's a Japanese saying which reads resilience, and everybody talked about resilience the past year. Resilience is 7 times falling down and 8 times standing up. And that's what I truly believe in. So never give up.
You are from a generation of Rotterdam graduates. Well, you're not from Rotterdam, but same generation more or less. That always had its focus on big companies, big corporations. You know, when you graduate in Rotterdam 20, 30 years ago, it was like, okay, I want to have a career in big businesses. That completely changed. I think most people want to be an entrepreneur nowadays. They want to have their own businesses. If you would graduate now, Marguerite, would you still have this ambition to be in the C-suite in some sort of existing corporate? Or would you also be interested in having your own business?
Yeah, so I think that my father-in-law, my stepfather-in-law, already advised me to start my own business when the company I worked for was acquired by Aon, and I didn't. So that was at the time when I was about to give birth to my first child. So not the right timing. But I'm now also non-exec at a small startup.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the energy and the fact you can you're really building something, and you're responsible for making everything happen. And often when you've been part of a huge organization as I am, there's always something which is working.
Yeah.
So being part of an entrepreneur, a young startup, really helps you to learn a lot. I do think that a lot of smaller startups or bigger startups, when they grow, not everyone gets to be a unicorn. So be aware that there can also be challenges. I think that at the moment you see that the corporates are really looking at any startup which adds value to their value proposition. So scaling up might be also there by going into a corporate. But I actually at the moment I'm surprised, Sander, by the number of students at the moment who all want to go into consultancy.
Sure.
Everybody wants to be at the consultancy. Aon Endpoint, I'm Chief Marketing Officer of the Aon Analytics Strategic Advisory
They want to be
unit.
consultants nowadays?
Yeah, they all want to be at
boring.
McKinsey and Bain and BCG and very good people. And I'm wondering, like, why do you want to do that? I think I know exactly why they want to do it. They've seen that a lot of the successful business leaders at the moment,
They started there.
Exactly.
It's a perfect starting point.
I think
also to start your own business later on.
They plan much more their career. I keep telling them, don't do that.
Yeah.
Just take it a step by step. But that's what they do. They think that this will bring them, like it used to be a traineeship at a large corporate.
Yeah.
It's now, 5-6 years with a well-known consultancy firm, and you're made.
Yeah.
Hey, you can either go into a big corporate, or you can do your own startup or whatever. And I think it's partly true. I think, first of all, they make you work extremely hard, but you learn a lot, and you see a lot of companies from the inside, and I think that's useful.
But you as a person who studied 8.5 years, how do you look at this younger generation, which is so focused on this CV building and studying like crazy people, but maybe under investing in their, let's say, social skills?
So that I can only really tell that to my own kids. Not to make the same mistake. Enjoy life and
there's a middle way. Yeah.
Grow up to be just a normal person and take it from there. When I look at the way we recruit, and I've done the same thing in Transavia, we put a lot of focus on those human skills. Yeah. Much more than looking at those resumes. Like I've done 3 internships and this and that and another course here. Okay, but did you have a life?
Yeah.
And they want it all, because they do want to have a life. They do want to go out already on Thursday and Fridays. They want to be extremely successful. They want to be on social and
sport.
How do you do that? There's only 24 hours in a day. That hasn't changed in the last 50 years.
No.
So be careful in what you wish for.
Yeah.
Mattijs, when I graduated at the time in Rotterdam in 1990, people thought I had failed. because they always saw me at every party. But I happened to simply efficiently spend my time when I was studying. I was really making sure I studied. Yeah. So I think that back to everything, all the aspirations of the youngsters, that get yourself alive. I don't think, especially now with CVs, there are a lot of similar CVs going around. Yeah. Be sure that you do something unique, even if that's for a non-profit.
But how important are those human skills today in the C-suite? Because I do think the world has become more and more specialized. So the image, maybe I'm completely off here, but the image I have of an old school leader was like a generalist, somebody who knows a bit of everything, who's a classical leader. And now the idea I have from this C-suite is that you have a lot of specialists, like almost a bit nerdy.
Now, first and foremost, I think the C-suite is a team of people. So in that respect, you can have those different individuals and together they form the team, and collaboration is extremely important. I think in addition, what's really important to note is that leadership, you talk a lot about leadership. Leadership is making other people follow you and make sure that whenever you're not there, that they will still follow a path you've set out for them. Yeah. For me, as a leader, I don't call myself a leader, but if people call yourself a leader, it's because other people are interested in what you say or what you have to do or what's your purpose. And I think it's important back to each and every individual should realize that you have to, at some age, you have to take a look and think, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And why do you want to achieve it? And that's your road to success. It's maybe not my road to success or Mattijs' road to success, but you should define your own individual road. And what I really don't like is a lot of people look at others. You can have role models, but don't be a karaoke manager, as I call it. Karaoke manager is copying other people's careers. Yeah. You're unique, you're authentic. And back to leadership skills, I think it's important to create trust. And trust is created because, one, you're authentic. People believe and feel that you are what you are. Yeah. That you're able to know what you're talking about, which is the intelligence, but also that you have empathy and that you're really a nice human being. And back to fun in the boardroom, I think it's more important that my fellow companions in my boards, wherever I am, that they like me as well, that they think I'm capable, but also that...
So human skills still important in the C-suite?
Very important.
I think it's more important than ever.
Yeah.
More important than ever.
I think as no single company, maybe with a few exceptions, is doing things on their own, collaboration is becoming more important. Building ecosystems, certainly when you have all those smaller startups, they all need each other. They all work together. And if you're not able to do that on a human level, no matter how fantastic your expertise is or your plan is, you need other people. Yeah. And I think, especially today, those human skills are becoming more important, and certainly on a higher level. Yeah. I'm certainly not the all-knowing person in the company. That's why I don't believe in working 80 hours. Yeah. It makes no sense. I have brilliant people working for me, or with me, actually, I should say, and I should trust them. Yeah. The only thing is I need to connect them to the purpose we have as an organization, and I have to make sure they stay close to their own purpose. Yeah.
Maybe also because the workforce became so much more diverse that your human skills are more important, right?
Now, I think that if you, the past years become very clear that, to quote Doug Conant, he was the former CEO of Campbell Soup, he said, to be successful in the marketplace, you need to be successful in the workplace first. Yeah. And that's, the past year it's become very clear that our employees, our people are our main asset. Yeah. And we need to make sure that they're doing well, whether it's physically or whether it's mentally. I think also mental health has really come across. And so in that respect, if you talk about how to attract talent, people will look at you. Are you representing the values which we would like to be represented in a company they would like to work for? And so the human, face and the human voice of a company and a corporate has become more and more also important in communications to the outside world. Yeah.
I would actually claim that as you say, you have so many startups, and sure, you need a brilliant plan and you must have a certain unique expertise. But I think the ones that maybe not necessarily becoming a unicorn, but becoming successful and also will exist for the next 20 years ago, are the ones that combine that with human skills. Yeah. So the true leaders, take Peter de Zwart or whatever, he can combine that business rigidness and his plan also with how do I build an organization that's fun to work for. And I think those will be successful. And the same for Adyen. It's an extremely nice organization to work with because we were one of their customers. And it's fantastic how they do that. So it's not just the plan and the expertise and the business model. It is those human skills.
Final question, very quick answer from both of you. You will leave the C-suite at some point because it's not your final destination. What will you do?
Teach.
You?
Play golf.
Oh, it's an honest answer. Thank you both. Thank you both very much. Thanks for watching.